Hello and welcome to today's live chat, which is coming to you from my motorhome. I'm currently in a place called Heilbronn, which is to the north of Stuttgart. Sorry, I'll take the camera up a bit. And so I hope the camera is okay, that you can see me clearly. Sorry, I've got the noise from I've got the computer on at the same time, so I can actually see questions as and when they come through, which is easier for me than actually seeing them on the telephone. Now, this has been 5 weeks or so since I did the last live chat, and there has been quite a lot in that time to actually talk about as far as Ukraine is concerned. I got the amazing news that Prigozhin had a mysterious accident. I mean, who ever could have believed it? Hello, Annie. And yeah, it was a bit like Brexit. It was something everybody warned about, but he still did it anyway. Fancy getting on a plane. I mean, how daft can he have been? I mean, or does he feel so sure of himself that he felt that he was absolutely untouchable? We've got the entire string of people who stood up against Putin suddenly having mysterious illnesses, falling out of windows, or in his case, falling out of the sky, getting poisoned, getting shot. Then he's daft enough to get on a plane with his mates and then fly off. I mean, it's as though he put his own head into the guillotine and pulled the lever himself. What was he thinking about? Don't know, can't say. But anyway, he's gone now. I'm sure the conspiracists will be claiming Putin had nothing to do with it or something like that. Anyway, so Wagner's gone, and so have a number of people who may have been around him. Now, my theory about this is that what he probably did beforehand was that he got in contact with a number of generals en route, and then he decided who he could actually trust, who would support him. I presume it was his bid to take over the country, and who wouldn't. So that is what I suspect actually happened. If we look at the attempt to overthrow Hitler on the 20th of July 1944, what they did was those that tried to overthrow him was that they got they contacted people, they contacted lots of people, find out who was on their side, who wasn't, and if they could use their troops. Sorry. And anyway, so that's what I think happened, and we do have a couple of people who have gone missing, and them who was presumably showed some support to him. Now, obviously, in the case of Hitler, we know that there was far more people were contacted than actually showed support. And having said that, these generals actually did not betray the coup attempt. So we know that, for example, Manstein was approached, and he said that Prussian field marshals don't rebel. Guderian probably was approached. It seems as though Rommel was approached. I don't share the opinion that he was involved in it, but he was absolutely clear as far as I mean. Stoltenberg must have told him, and others. So that is what I imagine Prigozhin actually did. He contacted people. Now, I imagine within the Putin dictatorship, however, that the army people are more loyal to Putin than they are to the military. That's what I imagine. I don't know. And so I imagine that one or two of them actually spoke to whoever's Putin's version of Beria or Himmler is, and then they let the cat got out the bag like that. That's what I imagine. I mean, I don't know, and I think that many of them clearly they were standing on the fence. And anyway, so when Prigozhin came to this absurd deal, when he realized that he wasn't going to succeed, and they thought everything went back to as it was before. And maybe it seemed that way. Then Putin, somebody did him in. So anyway, so that's that. Now, I personally now see the situation in Ukraine as actually having got somewhat better. The problem was these very deep lines of defense, which, again, to use a Second World War analogy, really made me think of what was in front of El Alamein in 1942. We could even say, because it's in a similar terrain, is Kursk in 1943. Kursk is in Russia, but the bottom of the Kursk salient was in Belgorod. And in fact, I went to the Museum of the Battle of Kursk in Belgorod. I thought it was very nice and a very fair museum. Of course, when I was there, it was 2005, so I suspect it's a bit different today. So you have very deep lines of defense with mined and without really the possibility of outflanking them. Of course, they could be outflanked, but that would involve crossing into Russian territory to actually do so, and that is seemingly not permitted. There was a couple of I don't know what to call them, commando raids, shall we say, on Belgorod, and they just sort of drove there, it would seem. They just got in their vehicles and went towards Belgorod. And there was no deep lines of defense there. So I think with this is where not only Ukrainians got their hands tied, and they have to attack only in Ukrainian territory. These deep defensive lines. Now, one thing that comes over to me is that Putin is somewhat similar to Hitler, in as much as that he doesn't want territory to be given up. And not only that, he believes in packing the front line with troops. So once a breakthrough has been made on the front line, then there's no reserves behind it. I mean, it's not just Hitler did it. Sorry, I mean, no, I'm blaming the others as well. The best example of not putting a mobile reserve was the French army in 1940. That's how the breakthrough there managed to happen so quickly. So a part of the problem, as I see it, is that because the defense lines cannot be, they have to be taken out by infantry assault, which is dreadfully slow, and it can only be done centimeters really at a time. And with the amount of mines that there are. And so this is the problem. But anyway, it seems now that they are approaching a place called Tokmak. Now, hands up, anybody that actually heard of Tokmak before the war? I had actually, but that's because I'm sort of interested in this type of thing. One of Britain's best known TV producers, Lou Grade, he came from Tokmak. He was responsible for many of the programs you watched in the 70s and 80s, or 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so anyway, he came from Tokmak. And this morning, the breach in the line, based on the information that was publicly available, we're now looking at breaches about 8 kilometers wide. And it's about 7 or 8 kilometers deep, something like that. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but then again, I mean, El Alamein, it took a long time. Having said that, it didn't take this long in El Alamein. This is now about 3 times longer than the breakthrough at El Alamein actually took. There's another thing lots of people are saying is that they've got to break through now, because if they don't do it now, then it'll get the weather will get all nasty and make it actually difficult. So I don't actually share this opinion entirely. To me, it seems, as seeing as it is now infantry attacking anyway to get through these positions, and if you're demining, actually the demining is probably best done in winter anyway, But the worst time for demining, I think, is in autumn when you've got lots of leaves and things, foliage on the ground. But it would, however, if the ground were all muddy, it would slow down any potential breakthrough. Now, last year I was in Ukraine, and we managed in a rear front wheel drive, I think it was. Was it front wheel or rear wheel? I can't remember now. Front wheel drive. It was a VW Crafter, and it were two VWs. And well, we had three actually at the beginning, but one didn't get beyond Lviv, sorry. And anyway, and that was before the roads sort of disintegrated. It depends on how bad the weather is, of course. So I mean, we actually, when we were there in the Donbass, there was one day it went to -7. Oh, in Kiev it was -3. It was snow all over the place. But when we were in the Donbass, there was very little snow, and that was, in fact, it wasn't all that cold. So I personally see this is actually being relatively positive. What I think is super positive, of course, is the attack on the Black Sea Fleet, and that to actually hit the headquarters is a major coup. And I think that the Russians were having a meeting there at the same time. Now, is the commander of the fleet dead, or isn't he dead? Well, obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Now, the Russians have produced a film showing him to be not dead. So as I see it, there's three possibilities. Either A, this film was filmed beforehand and he is dead, or B, he's alive, and the third possibility is he was dead, but now he's come back from the dead, so he's alive again. So there's three possibilities there. I would say that were he alive, I think the logical thing to do is there was a film in the 1980s with Gene Hackman and someone else about photo reporters in Nicaragua. I think it was called Under Fire. I think that was the name. Anyway, there was a scene in this film where they had the newspaper, and there was somebody who was reported to have been killed. I've forgotten his name, but the person whose name I've forgotten, Ha Muerto. So the name, this person has died, and he was holding it up. In fact, he was dead, but only they had to pretend he was still alive in the photograph. Anyway, so that is the sort of thing I'd have expected him to do. To go on the camera and say, "Well, as you can see, I'm still alive," and they're making this up. The fact that they put on some dodgy film, to me, just seems to indicate that this is just more Russian disinformation. And I also saw a bit of, I wouldn't say clever disinformation, but I saw something on TikTok on somebody's account on Facebook, which I shouldn't have perhaps have even been bothered looking, shared 100,000 times, 100,000 views, sorry, which was claiming about, it was obviously a piece of Russian propaganda, not even propaganda, it's a fake story completely, claiming that the Ukrainians had been kidnapping children, and they were taking their nationalist Ukrainians, and they'd be taking their body parts out, which they were hiding in containers, which they were sending as grain to Poland. And I mean, this is the sort of some of the ridiculous sort of things that will get shared out amongst people who are unable to have no critical thinking whatsoever. And the problem with this is that now we do have a problem with Poland. And this claim is that the grain from Ukraine, now I did a video showing grain being loaded on a ship in Poland a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago, and I don't know where that grain was from. It might have been Polish grain for all I know. But the problem here is that if Poland's decide it's going to abandon Ukraine, it's not going to send any weapons despite the threat and the risk, despite the fact of having this border with Russia, with Belarus, and despite the fact that nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, are being now placed in Belarus, the Polish government said, "Oh, we're not going to," and they're using this as an excuse, and using the grain as an excuse. I would say this: if it were true that Ukrainian grain were flooding the market, and I'm not saying it's not true, but I would say this: if it were flooding the market, then we'd see the results in bread prices. But bread as a commodity has risen in price enormously. So why aren't we seeing it reflected? Now, I do appreciate the cost of grain isn't the only cost involved in making bread. In fact, I think it's probably the single greatest cost is probably labor that goes into it. I think, I don't know, just guessing here, but certainly it's a major cost, and so therefore, if that were true, then prices would have been they would have fallen a bit, but that hasn't happened. So I suspect that this is due to the current government in Poland and the Russian influences on it. That's what I suspect. Of course, I might be completely wrong. Anyway, yeah, okay, so I'll just go through the question because some of them are quite relevant now. So Colin says, send in a flail tank to clean a minefield like Hobart's funnies. Yes, the way there's something, I think it's called a python. And what the thing about the cluster munitions is, and now there's more arguments about sending cluster munitions, but cluster munitions, I know I did a video on cluster munition last year, and I'm sort of opposed to cluster munitions as a rule, but in this case it's different. The cluster munitions, which are used to explode minefields. And so, therefore, that cluster munitions which the Americans supplied, which I think was only supplied it because they had none, they didn't. It was they didn't need it themselves. It was like getting rid of their old stuff. But the thing with cluster munitions is it will. Now, there's a thing called I think it's a python, and which it's the modern equivalent of the flail tank, just that explodes things as it goes forward. I mean, there's all sorts of other ways of getting. I mean, using drones, for example, when it's the summer to actually, because in the summer there's a certain amount of heat which is given off from metal, and so that things can be actually located on it. But I mean, to me, I find it very depressing, this thing about having to go through minefields, and having seen, I mean, I can say this, the amount of people I've shouted at to be careful of unexploded ordnance and things like this. I mean, in Ukraine, you've got signs all over the place in the liberated territories and even in the northern parts, all over the place. Where the enemy was, they've got those bomblets. Even a Facebook page I published, there was a photograph of an unexploded Russian bomblet. I've seen the canisters which are used for the what's the word in English? I've forgotten the word. The cluster bomb. Sorry, I forgot the word. I've seen the canister bomb, the cassette. In Russian and Polish, it's called a cassette bomb. So it is a python there, right? Okay, it's a python that goes and explodes everything. In my day, there wasn't these things. It was done differently, of course, like everybody else at my time. I had to do courses on how to defuse bombs. So anyway, so Colin mentions Russia's best general is the General Winter. And yes, so Colin says all you have to do is to have today's paper in his hand. Yes, that's all he has to do. He doesn't have to say anything. He might be shy. This poor bloke who was killed had actually retired as well. So they brought him out of retirement and then he gets killed. That was unfortunate. Right, Colin asks, could the Polish standpoint on arms be some kind of a smoke screen? Yes. It could be. I don't know. I cannot understand it. I think it could be due to the fact that the current Polish government is dependent on a party called Konfederacja, which has leanings towards Russia. Anyway, and I think this is it. I think it could be the fact. It could be forced on them by that's what I think. I mean, I find it quite disgusting myself. And having said that, it needs to be pointed out that there's no question that Poland will not continue to be used as a transshipment place for arms, and the president made this absolutely clear when he announced it. There'll be nothing would stop this happening. There is another problem actually, another election coming up in Slovakia, where a pro-Russian candidate may win. I don't know enough. Slovakia has a border with Ukraine. It's not a very long one. It's only about 80 kilometers, but it does have one. And so that wouldn't be good. I mean, Slovakia has provided quite a lot of equipment itself. So that is something. Good. So I think that's more or less what I want to say. One thing I know, an additional point I'd like to make. So here's a good one. Yeah. So Colin says the Warsaw city authorities have renamed the stretch of road past the Russian embassy. So the Russian embassy is a big building. It's not so far as well from the Belvedere, one of the presidential palaces. And so if you're in Warsaw, it's quite a nice area. But the streets now be called the Victims of Russian Aggression, and Colin saw it yesterday. Very good. And Apke says permission to take Catholicism to Russia and all Polish politics is run by the Vatican. I don't think that's true, that Polish politics is run by the Vatican, Apke. I think that the Polish government takes its orders from Torun and not from Rome. That is my opinion. One thing about hitting the base, anyway, these cruise missiles have been fired from submarines and from ships in the Baltic Sea, and by knocking them out, didn't even knock me jump. It's a base in Sevastopol. I'm exaggerating now, but by hitting this, I think this really was a really important target. It's strange though that we can notice how the terrorist attacks that were made on grain loading facilities and civilian targets in Ukraine, and now, having said that, having an effect because if they can't use the ports such as Odessa above all to export from, then part of the problem is that they have to going over land. I have friends in a place called what's called Ilychovsk. Now it's called Chronomorsk, I think. And my friend works in the port there. It just hit me now. Somebody I've known for many years. Indeed, she appears in one of my videos. Oh no, a few of my videos. But not on this channel. It's on the other channel. Good. So well, anyway, thanks very much for listening, and I shall try and do this more often. I hope I'll be able to say something positive the next time round as well. I am now in Heilbronn. I'll be here for some time. Heilbronn is to the north of Stuttgart, and actually the archive at Ludwigsburg is not so far from here as well. I'd like to think I might have a chance to go and see it. Anyway, so thanks for watching, and on Friday there's a video on the oh, you've been to Heilbronn, Colin? Oh, right, okay. I thought nobody had been here, and I thought I discovered it. In fact, they'll probably have a statue of me in the centre in 100 years' time, saying that this is me, and this is the person who discovered Heilbronn. And I forgot what I was going to say now. Whatever. A nice cathedral, is there? Oh yes, there is. I haven't been in it, but there is a cathedral. Sorry, yes. They've got a market out the back of it. Yeah. Good. Okay. whatever I was going to say, it'll have to wait. Yes, no, on Friday I've got about the battle for Chechen on the 1st of September 1939. In fact, it was part of a longer video I did, and then I thought, hang on, this is just too long, this video, so I took the part out of the battle out, and that will be on Friday. So good, thanks very much for watching, and all the best from me in Heilbronn, Germany. So bye for now.